Yeah, then the guys that are in behind me, though. So I'm going to start with the learning sponsors. Year of learning, Sarah Alpert in memory of her husband, Rav Tzvi Lipa ben Hillel, Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Eliyahu ben Yosef Kohen. Friends of Hani Chaifetz, Hannah Shoshana bat Yosef. Friends of Jack Prince, Yaakov Yitzchak ben Shmuel Dov. Friends of Sandy Davidoff, Sulamit bat Chaim Eliyahu. Friends of Judy Cohen, Yehudit Liba bat Moshe. Friends of Dr. Netra Safransky, Hannah bat Ephraim Fischel. Gail and Leslie Kaplan in memory of their parents. Mushka Sprinza bat Yosef Chaim Bachava, Hanan ben Moshe Eliezer Vachana, Pesha bat Shmuel Yitzchak Alevi Vitzipora, Isra ben Yoel Moshe HaKohen Vachana. Friends of Linda Katz, Hinda bat Yehoshua, Lee and Harvey Greenberg, in memory of their parents, Esther bat Eliezer, Yaakov Yosef ben Abraham, Sarah Rivka bat Baruch Yehuda, Betzalel ben Abraham Alevi. Friends of Rochelle Ebner Rachel bat Moshe, Ike and Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister, Dr. Phyllis Pacheco, Liv Shabbat Isser, Steve and Arlene Greenberg, in memory of his father, Chaim ben Shmuel Halevi. A month of learning by Haran and Mel Haller, in memory of her mother, Malka Rachel bat Yehuda Leib. Tova and Leo Ori Zimmer, in memory of her mother, Henya bat Reb Beryl, and her father, Aaron ben Yosef Mordechai. To Judith and Michael Poretsky, in memory of her father, Yaakov Yitzchak ben Hirsch Feivel, Perry and Jill Meltzer, in memory of his sister, Golda Leah bat David Halevi, and his mother, Malka bat Baruch. B. Pizer, in memory of her husband, Harav Yisrael Chaim ben David. Ira Grubard, in memory of his father, Shmuel Isaac ben Zev Yakutiel. Stephanie Gold and Fred Mortman, in memory of Jacqueline Santis Lapierre, sister of Bruce Deutsch. The students of Rabbi Yisrael Leib Ed Kurtzer, in appreciation of 17 years of dedication as Magid Shir of Daf Yomi. A week of learning by Carol and Josh Sanborn, in memory of her father, Yehoshua Shia ben Moshe Yehuda HaKohen. And today, there are no individual days of learning. May Hashem's have an aliyah, crank a rafia, velti yashir Hashem atliyah, chol b'nei Yisrael, a good gaben shtiar. Okay. Okay, I'd like us to begin this morning. Okay, actually, we're going to start on the on 60B4 if you're using Art School, or B5. Okay, the last next to the towards the end of the Amud, we have okay, we have a piece in the Gemara here where Rava responds regarding an issue with the Rabba Bar Chanan Labaye. Okay, the Gemara still hasn't answered what was Heshi's question about Hishtachavaya, why that seems to be separated as a different issue in regards to bowing and whether that applies to Noahides and the death penalty. Lelamed ala klal kulo, and if you want to say Zoveach Lamali, why then was Zvicha also situated, singled out? Okay, Lamali, why? He says Lagufe, because of its own self. The Mechashvin me avodah la avodah. Why? Because that tells us that it reflects in the fact that one part of the avodah leads to another part of the avoda. Okay, you have to slaughter the animal first, and then get the blood, sprinkle the blood, then you etc. 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 Okay. Now we go on. We're on the next to the last line. The itmar. Why? Because it was said. Okay. All right. Okay. The itmar, as it was said, hashochet behema lizrok dama. Okay, one who slaughters an animal. Okay, let's assume for whatever reason. Okay, what's the purpose? Lizrok dama, in order to sprinkle the blood, lavodat kavim, for idol worship. So it may not be that, remember, anyone could do the slaughtering. Didn't have to be a Kohen. So the person who slaughters the animal, but then the implication seems to be that the animal is going to be used for idol worship. Okay. All right. And now we're going to get further, says the Gemara. Ulahaktir chalva, and to burn its fat, la'avodat kochavim. Okay, so the question we're getting to is, can one still benefit from that animal following the fact that it has been slaughtered, okay, for a purpose that ultimately is to avodah zara, okay, to avodat kochavim. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Asura. According to Rabbi Yochanan, as we go now to the top of Samech Aleph 61a, Asura, okay, that the benefit in regards to the animal is prohibited. Varesh Lakish, what is his view? Amar Muteret. He says the benefit of the benefit from the animal is permitted. Gemara wants to clarify why does each take that different position. Correct? Okay. All right. Now, remember, we're still keeping in mind that we had the point that a pasuk we had said regarding the slaughter, not needed of itself. Okay. So I'm going to read into the Gemara here a moment. Amar Hanech Rabbi Yochanan. This seems particularly appropriate regarding Rabbi Yochanan because we had a pasuk that says that in regards to the slaughter of the animal, that okay, it's not needed, but the slaughter itself, how does that apply here? Okay, El Reish Lakish Baikra. So apparently, well, the question is, how did Rabbi Yochanan learn this situation? And he does not need a specific pasuk, okay, or it would appear at this point, he does not need a specific pasuk, where Rabbi Reish Lakish seems to imply that he does. Okay? Matkifla Rav Papa. Rav Papa challenges and says, Ula Rabbi Yochanan, and according to the view of Rabbi Yochanan, okay, we've already said it's a surah. Lo ba'ekra, are you saying he doesn't need a pasuk to make this distinction, this indication? Ad kan lo ka'amar asar Rabbi Yochanan. Up to this point, Rabbi Yochanan has not said it's forbidden, ela behema. In other words, that the animal itself that was slaughtered with the intention ultimately for avodat kochavim is prohibited. Okay, but to the slaughterer, okay, aval gavra lo bar katalahu. But the slaughterer, the person who did the slaughtering, is not going to be punished for, okay, with the death penalty. Okay, all right. That doesn't mean he doesn't get punished, okay, but it certainly doesn't mean he doesn't get the death penalty. Va'ata kra lechayuve gavra lekatla. And now, says the Gemara, are we saying that we need to have a pasuk, okay, specifically to validate that this individual should get the death penalty? Question mark. Matkifla Rav Acha Bareda Rav Ika. So it's challenged again by now Rav Acha Bareda Rav Ika. Ula Reish Lakish. And as far as Reish Lakish's view, who said that the animal benefit from the animal is permitted. Mi Baikra, does he really need a pasuk, okay, to prove the situation? Ad kan lo kashare Reish Lakish ela behema. Up to this point, Reish Lakish's view has been only that the animal itself is permitted. Okay, what about the slaughterer? Okay, right, that's what I said. Aval Gavra Bar Katalahu. But Reish Lakish would also argue that in this situation, the person who slaughtered the animal would be due a death penalty as his punishment. Mide dahava, okay, since we've had this, right? Amishtachave lahar. We might compare this to another example elsewhere in the Torah, where we see the situation is presented that one who bows to a mountain, okay, dahar mutar, va'ovda b'sayif, okay, that it's one thing to make some sort of movement vis-a-vis the mountain, but the person who, in other words, the item itself is not forbidden, the mountain, but the person who worships the mountain is going to get punished with the penalty of beheading. Amarle, so he says that should be the comparison. You could learn from that example, you should be able to apply it to our situation then of the slaughterer of the animal whose blood or whatever is going to be, and the animal is going to be used, whether there's further benefit. Okay, Amarle Rav Acha, midifte the Ravin. So he's going to try to come back and present another example. Lamai de Amarle, why is it such that Rava bar Barav Chanan Labai answers him as follows? Ema yatzah hishtachava'a, okay, lilamed al haklal kulo. No, the reason that the bowing issue or was singled out was because really it's supposed to tell us that there is a death penalty sentence for any element, any format, we'll use that word for the moment, of worship in the situation. Okay, well, clearly, in other words, our Mishnah at the outset gave a variety of activities. Okay, besides slaughtering the animal, it talked about burning incense. It talked about libations. It talked. What kind of okay, he doesn't. The question is whether he worships it, but the mountain itself is not considered a deity. That's the point. Okay, since it's sure. Okay, I wouldn't, but that's okay. Okay, what happens though? So we have this question still, okay, of why was the word ishtachva singled out? Here's a suggestion, is that it's simply an example of, okay, and saying any format of worship, okay, that our Mishnah referred to, the person who does so is going to basically get a death penalty, okay? Ema, I might say, Yatzah hishtachava v'lamed al haklal kulo. That's what we said. Okay, so the Gemara picks up. Okay, and now remember what happens. Echa ya'avdu lama utemai. Okay, so how do we say then when it says to serve it? Okay, what are we talking about? To exclude what? Okay, v'chi tema, and if you want to say lema'ute hapo'er atzmo lezovchim, that it comes to exclude an act where we said one defecates, okay, but it's not in regards to any kind of slaughtering, okay, all right, that it's a separate situation. But what we're saying is, if you do a degrading act. We'll get there. We'll get there. Hold on. We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay? So in other words, perhaps we're going to say it comes to exclude an act that is such a behavior, okay, totally aside from slaughtering. What might that act be? It might be a degrading act. And then if you're going to say it's a degrading act, maybe you wouldn't even consider that a form of worship. That's what the Gemara is going to suggest. Mishtachava nafka. So therefore we have the phrase regarding bowing that comes out here. Ma hishtachava derech kibud. Normally we would understand bowing as a way of showing honor to this deity. Okay? Afkol derech kibud. So therefore we're saying that the degrading act would not apply as a form of worship. Only those acts that would show honor or respect to the deity might be considered a worship variety. Okay? Ele lema'ute hapoer atzmo lemarkelis. No, it comes to exclude the fact that one who defecates himself for markelis. Okay, number one, it's a degrading act. Number two, that is not the necessary form of worship that was common for markelis. Okay, that form was throwing the stone. Okay, so again, the Gemara wants to say any such act which is not honoring, okay, the deity, okay, with the exception of this case, okay, what happens? It's not a standard form of worship. Okay, what happens? Sakata'ata. So in other words, we're talking about a degrading act, whether that would be subject also to the death penalty. Salkata'atcha, it's possible, Amina, I might say, Ho'il va'avodato bizayon, and here the Gemara is spelling it out for us. Since it's possible that we say that it's a degrading act, maybe it should not be subject the person who does it to the death penalty. Who? Afko bizayon. So any other kind of degrading act, kamashmalan, comes to teach us that's not the case. Ella, rather, says the Gemara, Hada Amar Rabbi Eliezer. It could be Rabbi Eliezer or Rabbi Elazar here, all right, based on what was said by Rabbi Eliezer or Rabbi Elazar. Minayin lezoveach behema lemarkulus shehu chayav. How do we know then that one who were to slaughter an animal for the deity Marcellus, that one would be obligated, in other words, one would be held liable and therefore get a death penalty case. Okay? Well, it could be. It's not the normal method, but it still would be considered an act of worship. Okay? Shenamar, as it says. Why? Because we have a pasuk here that's going to tell us as Yes, I know. I got Mishachava Nafka. So I could learn that based on the fact that we singled out the issue of bowing, since we've already argued that really we had a presentation that indicated that's supposed to cover any area, any variety of worship. Right. Okay. So what happens? So hatam bezoveach lahachis. No, the Gemara says maybe we have a situation here of the fact that the individual who performed such slaughter, and I have two different translations. One, that they slaughtered for spite, or they slaughtered as an act of insolence. Okay? Okay, which means the same thing. But the implication, if you notice, there's an art scroll note there on that. Actually, it was actually a Koran note there that pointed out that there's a difference of machloket of mefarshim, whether it's an act of spite or insolence against the Kadosh Baruch Hu, or whether it's towards the idol itself. Okay? Okay? Well, I'm just telling you, Rabbi Hananel had a different position than others. Okay, Rav Himnuna. Okay, and we see as follows: Irkasule Torah. We now have a little story that's thrown in here to try to impress upon us the significance of this whole issue of the liability. Rav Himnuna was out searching for lost oxen. Okay, what happens while he's out searching? Pagabe Rava, okay, Rava happened to meet him, and of course he asks him a shaila. Okay, what do you do when you meet a good colleague? Rama le matniden, and he raised a question about our Mishnah, ahadade. What's the connection between these two Mishnayot? Okay, Tznan. Okay, what happens? On the one hand, we have a text that tells us ha'oved avodat kochavim. Okay, what happens? Okay, there in that one worshiping, okay, the idol worship. Okay, Oved, if he actually, I'm going to read that word in, serves the idol, okay, in that case, yes, he would get punished. Okay, Omer, if he simply says, I intend to worship that idol, okay, if that's the case, lo, it would imply that he would not get a death penalty. Okay? Baha'anan, but we, however, Tnan, we also learn another Mishnah. Ha'omer evod, one who says, I will go, I will serve, and I will go to this worship of this idol. Ve'avod neilech v'na'avod, or they say, I will serve and let us go and let us worship this deity. Amar le, always say to them, Ba'omer, when you say such a thing, okay, what happens? Eini mekablo alai ela ba'avodah, that he's not actually committed a act punishable by the death penalty, okay, in such a way, unless he actually does some service, some act of worship, okay, mode of worship. Now, Rav Yosef is going to come and say, here we've got these two Mishnayot, okay, that are problematic one to another. How can we come up with an answer to define them, to show what's the difference between them? First attempt is Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef Amar, okay, Tanai Shakalt Ma'alma. You're taking Tanaim from here and there, and you're just giving their statements. That's not an answer. Tanaihi. This is actually a machloket Tanaim that we're dealing with these two Mishnayot, right? The Tanya, because according to one Mishnah, Ha'omer ba'u v'avduni. Okay, if a person were to say, come and worship me as a deity, right? Rabbi Meir says, Mechayev. Rabbi Meir says he is liable, he's guilty. The Rabbi Yehuda poter. But Rabbi Yehuda says he is exempt. Excuse me. Hecha de palchut kuli alma lo pelige. But where the person actually worshipped, okay, everybody agrees where there was their actual worship of this in situation, lo plige, they don't disagree. Why? Because we have a pasuk, okay, dichtiv, where it's actually written, lo ta'aselecha pesel, that you're not permitted to do any sort of, okay, that would be one, right? Don't make a pesel, some sort of idol, implying you cannot make yourself that kind of a being. That's the question. That's the that's the issue they're trying to clarify. Okay, if you say if you verbalize the intent, now so we're ultimately going to get to a piece of the Gemara that's going to say, isn't there a difference between action and verbalization, or are they one and the same thing? Okay, all right, let's go on. All right, ki plige, that's what they're arguing. B'dibura ba'alma, there's the point, that what they're talking about is saying something in general. Okay, vocalizing it, right? What happens, right? Rebbe Meir Savar, Rebbe Meir is of the opinion, Dibura Miltahi, that such a statement is a valid kind of activity, action, right? The Rebbe Yehuda Savar Dibura Lav Miltahi. And Rebbe Yehuda holds that such a statement is not considered a real solid act. Okay? That's the point. So what happens? Hadar Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef then recants and comes back and tells everybody, Lav miltahi da amre. That's not what I intended to say. I didn't mean it that way. This is how I mean it. Da afilu la Rabbi Yehuda b'dibura nami chiyuvi. Okay, that with regards to Rabbi Yehuda, he also would say that with some sort of speech or statement, the person would be held liable, mechayev, and therefore, indeed, they would be guilty. Talks and the other people do it. That could be part of it. Okay, in some way that might be, but there is, but it doesn't have to be that other people do it. Okay, his statement, is that considered right? Okay. Okay, so we're going to see in a moment, okay, what the implication is, right? Ditznan, as we held elsewhere in another Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, Le'olam eino chayav ad sheyomar a'avod elech. He is not to be held, he doesn't consider him liable or guilty until he says, I will serve, I'll go and serve that idol. Ve'avod nelech v'na'avod, or I will serve it and let us go and let us worship it. Now, b'mai kamiflage, what then are they actually arguing about? Okay, I was concerned as we continue how to best translate the word masit here. Okay, I'm going to share two different translations, but it's the same concept. Okay, one translation was instigates others to worship, whether it's an individual or a group. The other translation was to incite others. It's the same. That's why I said it's different translations, but the concept is the same. Okay? So what happens? What are they arguing about? B'masit la'atzmo. Okay? That he incites or instigates himself. Va'amrele, and others say, and yes, kimefalege, that's what they're arguing about. Mar savar masit la'atzmo. Okay? Shame lay, right? One says that when one instigates or incites himself, In other words, that he's listening and obeying. Okay, ve'ein de ka'amre le, right? And the others said it doesn't say that. Kushtahu, and he's saying that this is the truth, and therefore he's listening and he's going to carry out that service of that deity. Umar Savar, but the other one holds what? Masit la'atzmo lo shamiale, that when he may instigate or incite himself, okay, he doesn't really listen and obey, okay? Memar amre, and therefore says to themselves as we go to the top of the new Amud, okay? Right? Maishna ihu minandi dan, where they may be thinking, how is it that I'm any different than you, namely the person who claims worship me as a deity? Okay, ve'en, okay, dika amre, and what we're saying therefore is the follow. And when he says yes, what is he really saying? Achuche ale, that they're really mocking the person. Okay? Umatnitin, and our Mishnayot here, kan biyachid hanisei. Maybe we'll say that one of the Mishnah talks about an individual inciting. Okay? All right? Okay? I'm sorry. Kan biyachid hanisei, kan birabim hanistim. And here the other Mishnah is talking about a situation where many are involved, okay, in the inciting. Okay, what happens? Yachid lo mimlach. Why is there a difference there? Yachid lo mimlach v'ta'e batre. A individual will not reconsider, okay, and may error and follow the person in error, okay. And what happens? Rabim mimleche. But many people may reconsider velo ta'u, and they won't make velo ta'u batre, and they won't make the error and follow after. Okay, Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, Mena Aminala. On what basis do I say this? Dichtiv, because I have a pasuk that spells out from Madvarim, right? Lo ta'oveh velo tishma elav, that you don't exceed and you don't hearken to him. Okay? Ha, ava v'shama, but that implies if he exceeds and he hearkens to him, he listens, chayav, he would be considered, right, liable, guilty. All right? Etive Abaye. Abaye now challenges with the following. Mishane ben nisit rabim l'nisit yachid. Is there really any difference between one who incites or instigates many versus one who incites or instigates a single individual to avodah zarah, to idol worship? Vahatanya. But haven't we been taught elsewhere in another Mishnah that teaches, okay, ki yisitcha achicha ben imcha, if you're incited or instigated by your brother or from your mother. Echad yachid hanisei ve'echad rabim hanistim. The same apply. This pasuk applies whether you've convinced somebody, instigated, incited them as an individual to idol worship or as a group to idol worship. The pasuk applies to either, doesn't it? Vahotzi hakatuv yachid miklal rabim. And the pasuk then removes the individual from the general, from the group, miklal rabim, v'rabim miklal yachid, and removes a group. I'll put it that way, from the status of the individual, and it's going to tell us exactly in a moment what does it mean by separating the individual and the group. What do we mean here? Yachid miklal rabim. Lahachmir al gufo ulahakel al mamono. On the one hand, we're more stringent regarding the body. In other words, the kind of death penalty. Okay, but we're lenient in regards to the property. On the other hand, Rabim, right? On the other hand, Rabim miklal yachid, separating the group from the individual. What is that the difference? Lahakel al gufam, they were more lenient on the kind of death penalty. Okay, a ir nidachat is different than an individual. One, the ir nidachat gets beheading, whereas the other person, individual, got stoning. All right? Ulahachmir al mamonam. But there in the ir nidachat, remember, there's a stringency regarding the property. Okay, all the property is destroyed, burnt. Okay? Baha milta hudashani. In that manner, I'm translating it. In that thing, okay, the Mishnahs are different. Aval b'cho mile ki hadade minhu. But in all other situations, they are similar, one compared to the other. Okay. What happens? Ella rather. Okay, we now have another. We've had one attempt to show the differences between the Mishnayot. Now we're going to get to another one. Okay, Ella rather Amar Abaye suggests Abaye Khan in our Mishnah Beniset mipi atzmo. Okay, maybe it was a question of okay, uh, inciting himself. Okay, right? That with the intent to worship. Right? What happens? Kan b'niseit mipi acherim. And maybe in the other, it was that he was incited by others. Mipi atzmo mimlach. Maybe we might say that if he was inciting himself, okay, that he would reconsider. Mipi acherim garir bahatrayu. Okay, but if he was incited by others, maybe he would be, so to speak, dragged along. Okay, what happens? Amar Abaye, Mina Aminala. On what basis do I say this? Dichtiv, because again I can say we have the pasuk that said Lo toveh lo velo tishma elav, that you shouldn't exceed to him, right, and shouldn't hearken to him. Okay, right. But here, avav shama, that would again imply that if he exceeded and listened, chayav, he would be considered liable, guilty. However, Rabbah now says, Amar idi v'idi benisat mipi acherim. No, both Mishnayot are really talking about a situation of the individual being incited or instigated to idol worship by others. In one case, the Amarle, he says to him, this is how he would convince the person to worship. Kach ochelet, this is how the idol eats. Kach shota, this is how the idol drinks. Kach mativa, this is how the idol benefits. Kach maria, this is how the idol harms. Delo, amarle, okay. But, says the Gemara, if he doesn't say, right, that, and says to him, Kach ochelet, kach shota, but he doesn't say to him, okay, the way he eats, the way it drinks, etc. Okay, that's different. Amar Rava, says Rava, the following. Mana aminala, on what basis do I say this? Dichtiv, because I have a pasuk that says, Meluhim ha'imim, asher savivotechem, hakrovim elecha v'gomer. Okay, so in other words, talking about the nations who are surrounding you, whose deities are close to you. Now, I will just point out to make a mark by Art Scroll note number 25. Okay. Okay. I had a problem with Art Scroll's explanation here. Okay. I just want to point it out. Okay. The implication, I thought, was that to convince the person to worship, they would tell about a deity that belonged to some nation far away. Okay, all right, and then that might lead them to worship that deity as opposed to a deity of a nation that's close by. You have a different
Well,
shot?
just Avram Avinu at 2 years old recognized that the objects in his father's home were simply inanimate objects. So proximity gives you an ability to realize the beauty. But if I tell you something 1,000 miles away that you have no knowledge of, it's easier for me to convince you that it does have attributes. You know, you've never seen it, you've never encountered it. You think I'm telling the truth. What that sounds obviously true, but idea is it's easier to convince you of something you're unfamiliar with. Trying to tell you something you're familiar with is not what you think.
But in Missouri, they say seeing is believing. So only if it's close by would you do it, not as far away.
I think your explanation helps me understand the art scroll better.
That's what
Okay?
that's what the Gemara is saying.
Okay, that doesn't mean I.
This statement you should relate to distant with skepticism the way you
They
relate
to local. Right, I appreciate it. I still have a problem with it personally. Alan, yeah.
The Norse gods lived but it was most religions believe their gods live someplace that's totally
Distant. Okay, that's a good comment too, Alan. That's a good comment. Okay. Okay.
And the more interesting sort of expect that the one possible is the highest, and one just saying let's have it for rock, and the other saying you know what, this rock is real. It eats, it sleeps, it does things that is but when you do that, you're genuinely making it.
Okay. All right.
May I just add a point that to be pagan religious belief, if you worship one god, the other god will get angry with you and punish you. So you got to be very careful to worship the right god that doesn't punish you, because the other guy can punish. You know, they fight with each other.
Good. Everybody, thank you for your contributions, everyone. Okay, so what happens? So we go back then. Assuming I can find my place. Delo amar lekach ochel Rabba mena amina. We saw that. Okay, so we come back. Mali krovim. What do we mean by the nearer deities? Umali rechokim. And what do we mean by the distant deities? Hachi ka'amarle. This is what he was saying to him. Mativutan shel krovim. Okay, the benefits of the closer ones. Atolomed mativotan shel rechokim. From those, you could learn the benefits of the distant ones. My love is it not the Amarle that he said to him, Kach ochelet, so it eats, Kach shota, so it drinks, Kach mativa, so it benefits, Kach maria, so it harms. Shmamina, indeed, that would be the situation. Rav Ashi is going to say, hold on a second, I'm going to give an alternative again. Sefer B'Yisrael Mumar. There we're going to say that that's the situation, okay, where one who says that I worship, serve the God, that's from already somebody who is a renegade Jew. Okay? Rabina Amar, Lo Zo Avzo Katan. No, he's going to suggest another way of understanding these relationship with the two Mishnayos. Okay? That in the case where one who worships the deity, the idol, is liable. Okay? But a more novel, yes, but a more novel halakhic perspective would be, and even when you say that you're going to verbally consider worshiping it, you're going to also be held liable. That's his answer. Okay? Itmar. And it was said, Ha'oved avodat kochavim me'ahava. So now we get another little different perspective in a new piece of Gemara. One who worships the idol, okay, out of love, or out of fear. Abaye, right? Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, Abaye and Mar Chaya. Abaye, well, we'll get to that. That's why I'm not sure. Abaye says they're liable, they're guilty. Rava Amar Patur. Rava says they are exempt. Abaye Amar Chayav. Abaye says he's liable, guilty. Daha Palcha, because he did carry out worship of this deity. Rava Amar Patur. Rava says he is exempt. Ikable Aleb Aloha in. If he accepted it as a deity, yes, he would then be liable, guilty. Low, and if not, no. Okay, then we get a short mnemonic device, Siman Abad. Mishka, right? Okay, let's go on. Amar Abai. So now Abai. Mina Aminala. On what basis do I say this? Ditznan, because he learned in a Mishnah. Ha'oved avodat kochavim, one who worships idols. Echad ha'oved chule. That's our Mishnah. That was our specific Mishnah that we started with. If it says one who serves the idol, my love echad ha'oved me'ahava u'mira, doesn't that imply that it's one who worships, serves the idol out of either love or out of fear? Varava amarlach. But Rava would answer you, no, that's not that situation. The Kedemataretz Rabbi Yirmiyah. No, it's based on the way Rabbi Yirmiyah explained it earlier. Okay? Amar Abai. Mina aminallah. On what basis do you say it? The Tanya, we have a Braita. Lo tishtachaveh lahem. That spells out you should not worship to them. Make a note by Art Scroll number 32. Okay? Lahem, to you, iatam mishtachaveh. Here's the drasha. To them you do not bow. Aval atam mishtachaveh la'adam kamotcha. Okay? But you can bow to an individual like yourself. In other words, as an act of honor. Number 38. Note number 38. Okay, okay, all right. That was you were discussing that with me yesterday. Remember? Right? Okay. All right. Okay. So in other words, so note, make a clear note number 38 there, where it cites a source that okay. All right. So what happens? Yechol afilu na'avod kehaman. Okay. You might even say there, what about even worshiping somebody like Haman? Why is that given an example? Talmud Loma, we have a pasuk that then tells us, Velo ta'avdem, you should not worship them, right? Vaha Haman, and regarding Badhir Haman, Mira Hava Na'avod, they were worshiping out of fear. The Rava, and when Rava's argument, Kehaman, like Haman. Why? Velo Kehaman. In a way, they worship like Haman. In a way, it was not like Haman. How was it like Haman? Kehaman, the Ihu Gufe Avodat Kochavim, because he set himself up as a kind of deity. Okay? And that would be the one aspect of the prohibition. Velo kehaman, and not like Haman, the ilu Haman miyirah, because were it such that they worshipped him out of fear, vahacha lav meirah. And here, not out of fear. Okay? So in other words, he was both a form of worship, okay, and also there was a question that we're going to see momentarily.
The word Megillah says that when they bowed down, when Jews, except for Mordechai, bowed down to Haman, it was not because they believed he was a god. They were afraid of what he would do to them.
Okay, so you can see the connection. Good point. Thank you, Rabbi Esker. Vahacha lav mir. Va'amar Abaye. Let's go on. Mina amina la. On what basis do I say this? Okay, Tanya, because of Braita. Now, watch out here. Kohen Mashiach ba'avodat kochavim. note number 45 in Art Scroll. Okay, we're talking about the Kohen Gadol. Okay, what happens is such that the Kohen Gadol, I'm going to use the word bishogeg, okay, initially, if reading it in here to the Gemara, did an act that in essence was a kind of idol worship. The Gemara wants to tell us, as if to say, how is that possible that a Kohen Gadol would do such an act? Okay, I wanted to emphasize that as we continue. Rebbe Omer, says Rebbe, b'shegigat ma'aseh. Okay, that Rebbe said there was clearly, it was an act that was done inadvertently. Okay, there was some sort, right? V'chachamim omrim b'ha'elem davar. And the Chachamim, however, disagreed with Rebbe and said, no, there was an error in adjudicating the law, in understanding a legal situation. That's what happened. Vishavin shebeseira kiyachid. Okay, and both are equal in terms of an offering that had to be brought for an individual. Vishavin she'ein mevi asham talui. And both situations, however, would be equal. Okay, in terms of, right? Whether it's Rebbe's view or the Chachamim, okay, that they would neither, okay, would require an asham talui, okay, call it a hanging asham, temporary. So how do we understand that? That while they give different explanations, nevertheless, they come to the same halachic standard of behavior at the end. What happens as we begin to finish up? Okay, what happens? Hi, shigagat ma'aseh. The view of Rebbe that it was a shared act of shogeg inadvertence, right? Well, namely, avodat kochavim haya hechidami. How do you get that? That he might worship in that manner. Ikasavar beit knessetu. If he saw some sort of a structure, okay? A structure, all right? And he thought it was a synagogue. V'hishtachavalo, and he bowed there. Hareli bo l'shamayim. Then his intent was clearly acknowledging God of heaven, okay? Ela dechaza agdarta, but rather it turned out to be the statue of the king, v'hishtachavalo, and that's what he bowed to. Okay? Ikable ale ba'eloha. If he accepted it as a deity, mezidhu, then that actually would be not a shogeg, but it would be an act of mezid, of intent, right? That would be certainly a problem. Let's just go over the top a little bit of samach bet. V'ilo kable ale ba'eloha. And if he didn't accept it to him, didn't accept it as a deity, lo klum hu. It's like he did nothing, right? Ella love me ahava umiyirah, but rather, okay, maybe it was done out of a situation of love or fear. And we're going to continue tomorrow, okay, continue following up on what was Rava's answer to this situation and how the Gemara then tries to present to us, okay, other disputes furthermore. Okay?
Really good job. Very nice. Whoa.
Tomorrow back in the library?
I would hope so.
I have a Buddhist girl. She drags me to her temple. I don't want to alienate her, my girl. Or Hamlet says, bow to me or I'll kill you. Or bow to